they are watching in Tehran very closely how Israel and the United States perform. And if they perceive weakness, which I think delay is seen as being an evidence of weakness, a lack of confidence in Israel's objectives and capabilities, if they see weakness, they will try and exploit it.
So there's many things we want to talk to you about. One strand of this is this, what's been called this so-called axis of resistance. So this is leaders from Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad, who apparently met today in Lebanon to discuss how they were going to resist Israel. How concerned should we be about this alliance, this axis, in your view?
Well, I think it exists already. Before Qasem Soleimani went to his early exit, he was fashioning a strategy on Iran's behalf to create what he called the ring of fire around Israel with Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Hezbollah, the Syrian government, the Shia militia groups in Iraq, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, all designed to work more cooperatively together against Israel and presumably against the United States. So, there's confusion over the issue. Was there direct Iranian involvement? I think the answer to that's clearly yes. I think it goes back to the reason they supported these terrorist groups to begin with. And I think all they're doing now is coming out in public and coordinating in the way they were probably doing covertly before.
It's true to say that there have always been differences between these separate groups. Do you expect them to surface again, or do you think that because of the extreme circumstances that we currently find ourselves in, that those groups will be able to kind of perceive to perceive Israel as a common enemy?
Well, I think they all do see Israel as an enemy. The question, and what the Iranian Quds Force was struggling to do over a period of time, was make their operations more coordinated and therefore more effective. This is a pattern Iran has followed before. It, in effect, created Hezbollah in Lebanon in the early 1980s. In the past couple of years, it's been trying to create an Iraqi Hezbollah by combining the efforts of the Shia militia groups that it also set up. So it has funded, armed, trained, equipped all these groups and the Syrian government to varying extents. So it is, in effect, the paymaster. I don't doubt that there are still issues of disagreement, and it's not easy to get allies to work in the same direction, no matter what kind of alliance it is. But I do think this has the hallmarks of an Iranian strategy. I confess I don't know exactly what that strategy is. It's clear that both Israeli and American intelligence, and everybody else for that matter, missed the October 7th attack. So it's clear there are gaps in what we know, both about how that came about, but what the bigger picture may be.
Now, in terms of the ground invasion of Gaza by the IDF, we've heard that Israel has now agreed to delay that at the request of the Pentagon. Why do you think they've agreed to that?
Well, I don't know, and I'm not sure that's the real answer. I remember it's not so long ago that we were being told the invasion was being delayed because it was raining and because weather conditions weren't great for the Israeli Air Force. Now there are calls for a humanitarian pause, for aid to get in, for Americans to be able to get out, for hostages to be released. I think that there's clearly an effort to try and persuade Israel not to go in at all. I think that's the end result for some people. That would be their highest objective. And I think Israel's got to make this decision if there are legitimate military reasons not to go in at a particular time. If this U.S. request is the motivating factor, I can understand that. But I also think they are watching in Tehran very closely how Israel and the United States perform. And if they perceive weakness, which I think delay is seen as being an evidence of weakness, a lack of confidence in Israel's objectives and capabilities, if they see weakness, they will try and exploit it.
We've spoken to some people, for example, the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinian territories, who made the point that Israel does have a right to self-defense. However, it doesn't have a right to revenge, and that a right to self-defense is, in her opinion, it was almost time limited. It's not something that's unlimited. That Israel is not able to keep saying for an indefinite period of time we are acting in self-defense. The self-defense comes from what happened on October the 7th and the immediate aftermath. Do you agree with that?
I think that's completely wrong. When the United States was attacked at Pearl Harbor on December the 7th, 1941, we were not limited in the amount of time it took, not simply to respond proportionately to that attack and sink an equivalent number of battleships, destroyers, and the like. We were entitled, in the exercise of self-defense, to eliminate the threat, first posed by Japan, and then added to by Germany and Italy when they declared war on the United States. And we did that. We eliminated the threat. It took 4 years. But when we were finished, the threat was eliminated. And that was an exercise of our self-defense, and Israel is entitled to do exactly the same thing, eliminate the threat.
So does that mean that they could conduct a ground invasion of Gaza and occupy it for 4 years, in theory?
They don't want to occupy Gaza. The trouble the Palestinians have put themselves in, or allowed themselves to be put in, is that nobody wants them. The Israelis don't want them, and the Egyptians don't want them. So I don't think Israel has any aspirations to occupy Gaza. That's what they say, and I think that's credible.
Yes, indeed, they have said that on many, many occasions that we've asked them. I want to finally ask you about the row between the...
And they pulled out of Gaza. They pulled out of Gaza in 2007, didn't they? They haven't occupied Gaza for 16 years, if my arithmetic is correct.
That is correct. I want to ask you finally about this huge disagreement that's erupted between the UN and Israel after Antonio Guterres' remarks. I'm sure you're aware of them. He's said more recently that he feels he's been misrepresented, and that he talked about the terrible attacks that Hamas had carried out, and then went on to say, however, these did not happen in a vacuum. Do you think he was misrepresented, or did he talk out of turn, in your opinion?
Well, I think his remarks were easily understood by the Israelis as saying there's a moral equivalence here, and there is no moral equivalence. But I've thought about this since this controversy erupted, and I'll tell you my reaction. It's about the same as Jeane Kirkpatrick was once asked, should the United States withdraw from the United Nations? And she thought about it for a few seconds and said, no, it's not worth the trouble.
Goodness me. What is the impact then, do you think, in terms of the UN's standing and the effect of the operations that the UN want to carry out on the ground? We've already heard that Israel say they're going to withdraw visas from UN staff.
Yeah, look, I think it's just a further blow to the credibility of the United Nations. It's hard to imagine how it could get worse, but I think it will.